Hey, what's up, hockey fans? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over the top 10 worst NHL contracts league-wide. This is my personal list, so if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comments section below. If you are new to the channel and you just stumbled across this video in your search recommendations or homepage or whatever, maybe consider subscribing. We are a pretty new channel, and any support is really appreciated, so thank you all for all the support lately. It means a lot to me, and it really does mean a lot when you really. This is a new channel for me, this is a new venture for me, and it's really nice to see the support, and I really appreciate it. So without any further ado, let's jump into this video, and kicking off the list at number 10, we have Erik Karlsson, at making $11.5 million a season until 2025-2026. Now, while Erik Karlsson 4 years ago would have been completely worth this contract in my opinion, I don't think he is worth it anymore, and I significantly think that he's going to drop in production like we've already seen from him in the last few years since being with the Sharks due to injuries. It's not his fault, but if I was San Jose, I would have not picked Erik Karlsson over Joe Pavelski. I know Joe Pavelski is older, but Joe Pavelski is your captain. He is your heart and soul of your offense, and keeping a guy like that is way more important than signing Erik Karlsson to an $11.5 million contract. He's not worth it. Unfortunately, it's just going to constrict them even more because they're already paying so many players massive amounts of money. So it's not a good deal for the Sharks. It's not a good deal for anyone really, because Erik Karlsson really isn't worth $11.5 million anymore. He's more around maybe 8.59 on the high end. So 11.5 in my opinion is an extreme overpay. So because of that, I feel like he should be he should at least be in the top 10 worst contracts, because 11.5 million is just ridiculous. So coming in at the number 9 spot, I have Bobby Ryan making $7.125 million until 2021-2022. Now this contract to me is a very hard one to rank by worst contracts, because yes, Bobby Ryan has fallen off a cliff production-wise, but that's also mostly to do with the battle with his own demons he's had to deal with for the past few years, and the strength he has shown dealing with those demons, I just can't give him enough praise. So because of all those reasons, and also plus the fact that he's on Ottawa, he's playing on a team that doesn't really need cap space. He's playing on he's just going to play out the contract most likely. I think it's a great fit for him, and it's the only team in the league where I feel like it's his contract, although it is a bad one, it's not as bad as the other contracts that are fun to follow on this list, only because the team doesn't really need the cap space right now, so they're okay on that department, so they don't really need to worry about having to deal with cap space as a repercussion, because they don't really need it to begin with. So coming in at the number 8 spot, I have Kyle Turris making $6 million a season until 2023-2024. Now, this is another unsuccessful attempt to bring in more top 6 talent to the Nashville Predators. It's been a failed experiment with Kyle Turris, quite frankly. He was brought in to fill the role of a second-line center, but he hasn't played like it at all, putting up terrible stats in 3 years. In 182 games, he has scored 29 goals for 67 assists, for 96 points. For a player in his early 30s making $6 million a season, this contract is going to be almost impossible to move, and he's not playing well, so overall, this is just a bad contract for this team to have. I'm going to get into another player that the team has, which is kind of going to show and kind of get to the idea of why I have Kyle Turris as 8, and I'm going to jump right into it now, because at number 7 I actually have Matt Duchene as the 7th worst contract in the NHL. Now, I know to a lot of people who just aren't surface level hockey fans, that is going to sound crazy. Matt Duchene to them is a good player. When you actually look down his stats, he's never been like a guy that's been worth $8 million in my opinion, and the fact that they signed him until 2025-2026 is just not a good move. His highest point total in the NHL was 70 points back in 2013-14. That's it. 70 points is his highest, and he's making $8 million. He's never been able to get better than that. Now, he has had decent times, and he has been on some bad teams, but overall, it's not like he's doing anything better. And when you think about the fact that the Nashville Predators have $14 million invested in Kyle Turris and Matt Duchene until 2023-2024, you can't ignore the fact that that is just not good structure for your cap moving forward as a team trying to compete and win the Stanley Cup. Matt Duchene isn't going to be a guy who's going to put you ahead of anyone else in the playoffs, in my opinion. There are way better top 6 guys on competing teams that are better players than him at affordable cap hits, and also same with Kyle Turris. Kyle Turris at $6 million, that's worse than Brian Little's contract in the Central Division with the Winnipeg Jets as well, who's making only $5.125, I believe, and Kyle Turris is making $6. And I would rather have Brian Little on my team than Kyle Turris. That says a lot about how bad Nashville really is. Nashville saw the need to get an abundance of top 6 talent, and they went out and got the best that they thought was available on the market at the time. But because they only got what was best available at the time, it's very constructed them so that they have no real options moving forward to sign and bring in and change that top 6, unless they have a way to get rid of Kyle Turris and to maybe get Matt Duchene, get some life sparked into his game again. So because of that, I feel like number 8 for Kyle Turris and number 7 for Matt Duchene, I think that's very fair when you look at the team as a whole and what those two players bring offensively and how much they're being paid combined and separately. They're just not worth it to me for guys that are being paid that much money to be in your top 6. There are way better options available at a cheaper rate on other teams, and it really shows how Nashville dropped the ball on trying to build a top 6 really quickly so they could really compete with teams in the Central. Now, for the 6th worst contract in the NHL, I have Brent Seabrook of the Chicago Blackhawks making $6.875 million per season through 2023-2024. Now, the reason I put Brent Seabrook at number 6 is because personally, I feel that he has been a shell of what he used to be as a defenseman, and the fact that they're paying him almost $7 million a season on a team that's just trying to rebuild and restructure, he's one of the worst contracts on that team. At least with Duncan Keith, he is still, I would say, productive in a way so that he can be a good defenseman still. Obviously not at his cap hit, but I still would rather have Duncan Keith at that cap hit compared to Brent Seabrook, who has never been that good of a defenseman, just a solid two-way guy his whole career, and had some really good years, especially on some really good teams that won cups, but overall he's never been that great of a player. So this is just another example of Chicago, teams like LA, Chicago, all these teams that won cups wanted to keep the band together, so they gave all these cup winners on their team big contracts, and because of that, they're stuck with them now. Now, Brent Seabrook has been injured for most of the season, and hopefully he comes back and can play better, but if it doesn't end up working out for Brent Seabrook, playing out this contract, his health, whatever it may be, they might have to trade him like they did with Brian Bickle. And when they traded Brian Bickle, it cost them Teuvo Teravainen. Now, if they have to do this again and dump a bad contract with a good player attached to it, and who's a young developing player for them, it's just not a good look for them moving forward. They're just setting themselves behind more and more and more. The faster the Chicago Blackhawks commit to a full rebuild, the better off they will be. Moving guys like Brent Seabrook are important, but also it's kind of like a risk because you don't want to have to give up a good player with him just to create cap and move forward. So it kind of sucks for Chicago fans to have to deal with this type of players and cap hits. I know they're great legends for you guys winning cups, but I know how it feels to have bad players that you love that are now becoming bad with age and who are on bad deals. I know that's how that feels and how much it sucks. So it's a bad deal, but hopefully he can play decent enough so that he can be moved to maybe a team once it's closer to being ended. But other than that, it is not a good contract for Chicago Blackhawks. Now, for the 5th worst contract in the NHL, I have Kyle Okposo of the Buffalo Sabres making $6 million a season until 2022-2023. Now, Kyle Okposo has a bad contract, but unlike some of the players ahead of him, he at least is still able to produce a little bit offensively, so it kind of, in my opinion, makes this contract bad, but at least there is some upside to him still playing with some edge in his game, as you could say. He's not worth $6 million, but for a guy who's put up 57 goals, 80 assists for 137 points in 271 games since signing with Buffalo, that's not bad. 137 points in 271 games, it's not very good for a guy that should be upwards to closer to 200 points, but it's still production, right? 57 goals, 80 assists in 3 seasons. It's not where you would want Kyle Okposo to be at all. But overall, it's not the worst that you could have, right? There are a lot of other players ahead of him on this list who are making very similar to what he is making, who do not produce at all. So because of that, Okposo is at number 5, because the players ahead of him who are making the same amount of money for about the same amount of term are just way, way worse offensively. So because of that, I think Kyle Okposo is a solid number 5 for the worst contract in the NHL. For the 4th worst contract in the NHL, it pains me to say this as a Jets fan, but it's Andrew Ladd at $5.5 million a season until 2022-2023. Now, I know he's not a member of the Jets anymore, but he was the first captain for us since relocating back to from Atlanta to the Winnipeg, and because I'm a huge Jets fan, I hate to see a guy like this on this list, but it was bound to happen with what he was signed for at when he was signed to it. So Andrew Ladd is signed to $5.5 million a season until 2022-2023. Now, I love Andrew Ladd, like I just stated, but this is just a bad contract. He has spent more time in the AHL than the NHL in the last 2 seasons. For a guy making $5.5 million to not even produce well in the AHL, it is just not a good look for the New York Islanders. This was a really, really bad signing. It was probably one of the worst signings. This is one of the most prevalent thing that Garth Snow did before leaving, because this is what he's left for the team to deal with. The only option they had to trade Andrew Ladd was going after Zach Parise at this year's 2020 trade deadline, and that deal fell through. But to even think about that as a concept, that the only way you can trade Andrew Ladd is for trading, in my opinion, which we will get to, possibly one of the worst contracts ever in the NHL, that just says a lot about how bad this guy's fallen off a cliff, that a team would be willing to take on that type of contract just to move away from Andrew Ladd. And it says a lot. It's not a good move to sign him for a guy like Andrew Ladd was a really good two-way type of player who was a hard-hitting bruiser. Now, those type of guys are good when they're in their prime, but they fall off hard and they don't last long in the NHL. And we're starting to see that more and more with guys like Wayne Simmons as well, who are just falling off a cliff, who played that similar type of two-way game. So hopefully GMs will be able to learn in the future that signing guys like that when they are in their 30s to long-term deals at high cap hits, it's not going to end well for your team. So because of that, Andrew Ladd at number 4. So coming in at the number 3 spot, I have Louis Eriksson making $6 million a season until 2021-2022. Now, after posting 71-plus points in 3 straight seasons, Eriksson proceeded to tally just 84 points in his next 142 contests before rebounding to 63 points, 30 goals in 2015-16 with the Boston Bruins, just as he was set to be a UFA. And the rest is history. A painful history for Canucks fans, to whom Eriksson has only served as a reminder of a past spending gone wrong. Now, to no one's surprise, coming in the number 2 spot is Milan Lucic, making $6 million per season through 2022-2023. Now, there's not really much I need to say about Milan Lucic. If you're a hockey fan, you've seen him play, you know what he is, you've heard about the analysts talk about him, about his contract, about how bad it is, about how he brings nothing offensively, how he's not good defensively, how he can't skate. You could go on and on and on and on about how Milan Lucic is basically just a shell of what he used to be and is an epitome of a fourth-line grinder now. Now, there's nothing else you can really say positive about that. He had a good career up until now, and Edmonton signed him in the hopes he would be a nice bruising winger to help protect McDavid. That didn't work, and now he just sucks. He was traded to Calgary for scraps and James Neal, and unfortunately that worked out really well for Edmonton because James Neal's a stud. So overall, Milan Lucic is just kind of a shit contract no matter where you cut the line, and he's just not a good player anymore, and it's just a really, really bad deal, and it's just a lasting footprint left on the league by Peter Chiarelli. Now, coming in at the number 1 spot for the worst contract in the NHL, it is held by 2 people, actually, surprisingly, and that is Zach Parise and Ryan Suter of the Minnesota Wild, both making $7.538.461 million each, which is a combined cap hit for $15 million each. Combined, excuse me. And that is until 2024-2025. When the Minnesota Wild shocked the world and they signed these 2 players, everyone thought they were posed for a deep cup run and they were going to be a really good team in the West. And unfortunately, that just never happened. They had mediocre regular season after mediocre regular season after first-round exit, and it just never turned into anything. And now they have to pay these guys $15 million combined each until 2024-2025. Not to mention the fact that they got to sign Ryan Donato, Joel Aronson Ek, Luke Cunnin, and Jordan Greenway. Guys who are going to not be huge cap hits, but you're still going to have to sign them. And I don't understand these contracts. I didn't understand it when it was signed. When it was signed at the time, it was 35% of the entire cap of the team. It didn't make any sense to me, and I don't like these contracts. They're good players still. They're just not good contracts at all. They're the worst contracts in the league by far. And the fact that the 2 of them have the same contract just makes things worse. Alright guys, that rounds out my list of the top 10 worst contracts in the NHL. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have a difference of opinion, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear it. If you are new to the channel and you just found this video browsing on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel stay alive and really does help, keep me making good content. So I appreciate all the support. With that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. Peace out, take care, and I will see you in the next one.